In this chapter, it's all about percents. We've already talked a lot about where we see percents in the real world, whether we're talking about, sales, hey, it's on clearance for 50% off, or, copays with medical insurance, sales tax, leaving a tip. Okay, we could even talk about using percents in sports. What's your field goal percentage? What's the percentage of baskets that you're making in the game? We talked about how we see this on nutrition labels. Okay, so percents are all over the place, but you need to understand what percent means. What does percent really mean? All right, well, percent means per 100. So when we see this, that means per 100, or it means say out of 100. Okay. Percent is a ratio. Okay. Percent is it's a ratio. We did ratios in the last chapter, and so we're going to see a lot of connections with the ratios that we did in the last chapter and proportions to using percents in this chapter. Okay, so what I was saying before, a lot of times you may have with your health insurance a 20% copay. Okay, so what does that mean? A 20% copay means that you pay $20 out of every $100. That's what it means, right? 20 out of every $100 is going to be your liability. It's going to be what you owe. So if a procedure costs $200, how much are you going to have to pay out of that? $40, right? And then we can set up a proportion and figure out what that is. And we can just do some basic math and also come up with an idea for what that means. So $20 to $100, or we can look at this as a true ratio, 20 to 100. Now if I look at this as 20 to 100, or 20 over 100, I can't help but want to do what with this guy? Reduce it to what? How do you reduce this guy? Reduce by a factor of 20, so you get 1 to 5, right? So you may be paying 20%, which is 20 out of every 100, but that could also reduce to be 1 out of every 5. And if you can make these connections between these percents and fractions and decimals, that's what we're going to do today. That makes looking at these percents a little bit easier to work with. Okay? Just like I asked you guys to memorize certain fractions, right? If I said, what's 1/4? What is 1/4 as a decimal? 0.25, okay? If I say 0.3 repeating, that's the decimal. What's the fraction? Right, it's 1/3. So we had these guys memorized, and we're going to recall these guys. Now we could talk about, taxes, right? Well, what if you have, say, an 8% tax rate? What does that mean? That means that you pay, so you will pay $8 for every $100 of stuff you buy. So when you go in there, it's not going to be $100. It's going to be $100 plus $8 because it's tax, right? And we know that some things have different taxes. The tax rate is different almost everywhere you go. If you go to a hotel, it's a different tax rate for a hotel. If you're in Texas, you can buy regular food and not get taxed. If you go to other states that tax food, it may be at a lower tax rate than the normal everyday items. So it's not all the same. And there are even some states that don't have sales tax.
New Hampshire.
Oh, New Hampshire? think Delaware too. I could be wrong. I don't know. I don't go around those parts. I like to stay in the big old grand state of Texas.
Yeah, Delaware.
Delaware's right.
Yeah, I live
Delaware, the first state, right? Come on, you got to know your history. All right, so we see percents. We may see, oh, hey, this is 75% off. And we know what that means, okay? That means that you would get to discount or take $75 off of every $100 of merchandise. Okay? So we see percents all the time. I challenge you to go through a day in just being a consumer here without seeing percents. Okay. Or if you come across percents used in a way that we haven't thought of, bring that to my attention. If you guys have ever gone looking for a house, ever go house shopping, one of the things you may look for is the tax rate. And we'll get into that later, and so you can see that even though the houses may cost the exact same price, depending on where it's located, in terms of the property taxes that you will pay every year, that could be a difference of about $2,000 or more. So how do I convert this percent to something that I'm more familiar with? Well, let's go back to the 20% that we had. We said that the 20% really means 20 out of 100, right? How do you read this fraction without saying 20 over 100? What is the technical way for saying this fraction? Isn't it 20 hundredths? And we can write 20 hundredths as 0.20, right? Now, do I really need this 0 here at the end? No. But sometimes we put it there to make us feel a little bit better. Okay, not a problem. What if I have 73%? I could say this is 73 out of 100. But what is that as a decimal? It's 0.73. So what's the trick here? How do I go from a percent to a decimal? Just why? Are you rolling with the homies there? Oh, I think it's more like this, right? You move the decimal a couple of places, right? 2 places, right? Please understand this. Anytime you're doing conversions between percents and decimals or vice versa, your decimal only moves how many places? 2 times, 2 times. You do it more, you do it less, you're going to be wrong. I have no sympathy for you. Play this back over and over if you need to. So if I say 17%, what is that as a decimal? 0.17, right? What is 6.5% as a decimal? So look, the decimal is understood to be here. You went back 2 places. So you go back 1, 2 places, right? So that's 0.065. If you misplace the decimal, I mean, that could be huge problems. And I'm sure there have been movies made about people putting the decimal in the wrong spot. And then, oh my gosh, how did this happen? Like, you ever saw Office Space? And okay, you haven't seen Office Space. It's all right. It was a comedy. I know you're more into like documentaries and stuff. I forgot about that. So, what if I have 170%? The decimal is understood to be here. Go back 2 spots, and so it's 1.7. What about 200%? That's 2. Okay? And we see these numbers, right? If you hear about things that, oh, there's been a 200% increase in the number of, you know, homicides, right? Or in, I don't know, teachers breaking into cars or something, I don't know. So what does a 200% increase mean? Well, actually, it doesn't necessarily mean 2 times. It gets kind of weird when we start talking about percent increase and decrease. Okay, a 200% increase means that you would double the rate that it is, and you would add it to the original. So it gets kind of weird, but we'll see that in a few sections.